Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Bible study this week. I'm joined by my friend Staci O'Neal today.
Hello, everybody.
I think most of you may recognize Staci. She's been a friend of Ridgecrest for quite a while. So how long have y'all been here?
Oh, gosh. 28 years, something like that.
Something like that. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
A long time.
Oh,
Very
yes.
long time.
I remember meeting y'all some of our very first weeks here at Ridgecrest. So your husband does music, something like that?
He does music and senior adults.
Yes. We just love you guys. And you're one of our life group leaders.
I am, sort of.
Well,
kind of moved into this coach role, which is kind of a new thing. Our life group is multiplied, not divided, multiplied.
greatly multiplied.
Into three groups, and Brad and I are kind of acting as coaches as you guys branch off and do it on your own.
That sounds a lot like discipleship, Staci.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, well, so tell us as we get started. I had two questions specifically for you before we dive into our lesson. How would you define discipleship broadly?
Broadly, discipleship is teaching through life. And that can look a lot of different ways. Sometimes it can look one-on-one. Sometimes it can look one-on several. But I think teaching, finding the teachable moments in life. I think that's what Jesus did. He found the teachable moments.
Which means you've got to be there.
Yeah, you've got to be
with
there.
people.
And you've got to be intentional to see those teachable moments and then teach, because they won't teach themselves. But sometimes you point out those teachable moments. So
That's awesome. So who along the way discipled you?
okay, that's a long time ago. No, but really, I would have to say the Sunday school teachers throughout my childhood and youth years. And then I'm going to say my husband is probably the biggest discipler in my life. And that's not the case for most people. But when I first met Greg, I was a teenager, and that was really a big time of growth. And so through high school and college, and then there have been women along the way. And I would probably also put in that category people that I've never met in real life. The Beth Moore and Priscilla Shire and David Platt, the people that have discipled me through their writings, kind of like what we're doing now. But I would have to say some of the, Miss Beth Rogers, who just passed, was a big influence for me. Of course, before she got sick, but women like that.
Oh, yeah. I love her. We were, I think she did Tuesday morning Bible study with me for just a little bit. And she was in choir. It was fun. It was fun talking to her. Okay. So this week we learned about the call, just the general overview of what is discipleship, defining discipleship. So many good things. I went through each day and just said, hey, let's pick out a phrase and a concept and talk about that from each day. And then we may trace little rabbit trails. We'll see.
We may.
Probably. We always do.
Because we've not rehearsed this.
So. No. The best talks are not rehearsed. So yeah, we're just here talking. So I was going to read the verse from day 1. And when I first read this, I was just like, wait, how does that work here? And then as I processed out this verse, I was just like, wow, this really does work with discipleship. So this verse is Luke chapter 1, verses 37 and 38. And it says, for nothing will be impossible with God. So we know this is just after the angel has told Mary that she's going to conceive and have a child, Jesus, right? For nothing will be impossible with God. And Mary said, and this is what I just want to encourage each of us to say to ourselves as we go about this next week. Behold, the bondslave of the Lord, may it be done to me according to your word. And then the angel departed from her. And we know that at that point is when Mary then gets up and she runs to go see her cousin Elizabeth, who we talked a little bit about last week, was the other person in her life having a miraculous pregnancy, and how much Elizabeth must have discipled Mary. And so I think a piece of the one being discipled and the one discipling is saying, may it be to me, as you have said.
Yeah, the willingness to be in that relationship.
Yes.
And y'all talked last week about being vulnerable. Obviously, her saying, may it be into me, is one of the most vulnerable statements
Yes.
that she could have made.
And she had the task of raising this perfect child, the Son of God, but that's a discipling relationship, being a mom to this son, and that's a powerful thing for her to say, yes, I will take this on. None of her friends could really relate to what she was going to go through. Okay, so there was a quote in the book on day 1 that says, discipleship is a lens through which we can view our existing relationships in the life we are already living. And I love this concept so much. And I think this really pieces with our identity and seeing ourselves as the fact that when we are believers, we are disciples of God. That's who we are. It's not just what we do. Who we are is a follower of Christ. And also, because of the Great Commission, we are now disciplers of one another. And so this should not be something that we look at as an added task, something else to check off. Have I done this? But looking at it as an identifier, something that we identify with. Who am I? I am a discipler. I disciple people for Christ. And I think that goes back to your point of being there and being ready to enter someone's pain, someone's hurt, someone's question mark in that moment and disciple them.
Yeah, I think for years, 150 years probably, if not longer than that, we've made discipleship a classroom setting.
Yeah.
Where, in our Sunday school structure for decades, you sort of never graduate from that. Mm-hmm. And so on one hand, it's really good to always be a student of the Word, because you never stop learning.
Yes.
But at the same time, I think for some people, it gives them this idea that I'm not ready yet. I haven't graduated yet because I'm still learning. So I'm not ready to be the teacher.
Right.
But we are. Mm-hmm. Because all along the way, we have moments in other people's lives that we can disciple them.
And speak into. I mean, and we have this. And that is all we need.
Yeah.
Is the Word of God to disciple others and to shape our thinking to help others walk. Like, some of the greatest times of growth I've had is when I've been actively walking with someone else, teaching them or learning from them more than in the classroom.
Yeah. More
than in the Sunday school room. And I'm thankful for all of the Bible studies I've done sitting around the big table or in the room, lecture hall style. But there's just a piece of living life together that you can't get there in the classroom.
Yeah. I mean, think about when Jesus taught his disciples. He taught in parables. We're going to read one later. Mm-hmm. That he used the moments of life, the tree that he saw, or, the well, the fig tree, the whatever he saw, he turned it into a lesson to teach the principles of the kingdom.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. So how do our relationships with other people look different when we view them through this lens of being a discipler?
I think that can be dangerous, to look at people like projects.
Amen.
I've been guilty of that. I'm a fixer by nature.
Same.
So many of you are fixers. And I think that we have to be careful that we don't befriend people with this ulterior motive. And even though our relationships, we know that God's put us in people's lives, and and vice versa, that, we want to be aware of that and not miss those teachable moments, or those moments when to show love and to show compassion, to show grace, and all of the things that discipleship entails. But it ought to, it impacts our relationships, but man, we can't fake loving somebody so that we have an opportunity to fix them.
To make them look more like us.
Right. That's not what it's about.
No. And one of the big things to me is seeing myself as a disciple, and as a discipler. Like, when I have an accurate view of who I am and how much I need Christ, I am way better able to show grace to another, because I see them as made in God's image, not as a problem needing to be fixed, but a fellow sinner walking this path together. I've lived a lot of years thinking I was the discipler, and then someone would teach me something and I would question whether they were spiritual enough to teach me something spiritual. And that is such a prideful, terrible space to be in. And I remember realizing at one point, just being like, wait, they're made in the image of God. Like, this is, and I love this picture of Woven, because this is them showing me something about the Lord while I'm also showing someone else something, and I'm seeing them as made in the image of God, not a project.
Yeah, it's, I've reached that point. Well, a while back, I reached the point where my adult children, or even not quite adult children, took opportunities to teach me. And many of you that are my age have maybe been there, where your kids taught you something. I would say put you in your place, but it's not so much that, but really spoke truth into your life in a way that had to humble you and think, okay, yeah, I'm learning. So even when you may see yourself as the more mature believer because of age or whatever, or length of being in the faith, we can always learn. And you're right, it is a pride thing to think, okay, well, I can't learn anything from you. Right. If you've ever taught little kids, well, they can certainly teach you a lot.
I was going to say, my 2 and 4-year-olds are teaching me every day, but patience has been the lesson of the snowstorm week. Okay, so what about our approach to life and discipleship changes by viewing things through this new identity? And I'll start this one, because we mentioned last week, this open and honest approach, this being real with others, this being authentic with people. I changed that way. And I think we probably covered a lot of this when we answered that first question. But anyway, I feel like you guys do so well at your time, like giving that so generously to people, to just be there and live life with people.
Yeah, you can't be selfish with your time. I mean, you can be, but you're going to miss out on things. And it is important to, all the things about taking care of yourself, mm-hmm. and giving your family time. But, it is, you have to share with other people and be willing to not be selfish with your time. Mm-hmm. What about our approach to life changes? That's probably what I would say. Just be willing to share your gifts, your money, your time, your stuff.
I was thinking about the gifts and the spiritual gift piece, because discipleship is not a spiritual gift.
Right.
It's something that we're all called to do. But those with the gift of teaching are going to disciple in a different way than those with the gift of mercy or of helps or of giving. Like, we all are going to disciple in unique ways, which is where I think almost all of us have stories of more than one person that has discipled us.
Look, you make me think of Miss Judy Fortenberry. Oh my goodness. I hope you're watching, Miss Judy. But she sends birthday cards. I wish I could be a person that sends birthday cards. And I guess I could be if I really put my mind to it. But in fact, I have this little thing in my Bible that Miss Judy made a long time ago.
That's so sweet.
It's a bookmark. But there are people that are in your life, or you are in other people's lives, where the little things like, I don't know, sharing your gifts. I don't know what that gift is that Miss Judy has, but it's not a gift that I have.
Right. Same. That's awesome. So on day 2, and that's such a beautiful segue into day 2, on the video. So I've been loving these videos. I love that we have the videos on Right Now Media. We have the book. We can do both sides. I'll let you go ahead and read the Bible verse, and then I'll talk through the quote from day 2.
All right. This is 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6 and 7. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you.
I love that verse. And I love that we just heard that verse preached, within the month.
Yeah.
I just love how when things cross, like when the lessons that I'm hearing on Sunday are crossing during the week. And I found it so interesting when he was preaching through that passage, bringing in these anxieties and casting our anxieties on the Lord, and the reality that it says, humble yourselves before the Lord. And so, like, to truly cast my anxieties and give them to the Lord is so humbling. Like, it takes so much humility to do so. And so the quote that I found really beautiful in the video was, I don't need to be enough to do this. Jesus is enough to do this. Jesus is our why. He gave the command. He is our what. Like, he is who we are discipling for, like, not for ourselves. And he is also our how. He is our strength to do that. And so what are some ways you've kept your focus on that truth, that we're making followers of Jesus and not ourselves?
When you do things for other people, a lot of times they will say thank you or want to give you credit. And I think always trying to direct them to God. Being humble, not letting things get to your head. And when you're in a position of leadership, and I've kind of been in that position of leadership since I was probably 19 when I got married. I got married young. But instantly, because of being married to someone who was a minister, I was put in a position of leadership before I really earned it. And made a lot of mistakes along the way. Those who knew me back then could probably tell you lots of good stories. But yeah, I think keeping the focus on Jesus and not yourself, not becoming prideful. I mean, it comes back to pride so often.
And not, I was reading this book this morning on personalities, Enneagram stuff, and it was talking about a specific one of the personalities. I don't remember which one because it applied to me, but like how much we like overthink about the disapproval of the one or the extra praise of the other. And I think feedback can be important, but meanwhile, keeping our focus on this being for the Lord is so important. And this is catching fish for the Lord and not for me. I love that. One of them made the quote in the video, "In my not perfectness, Christ is enough," which reminds me of the verse from where Paul says, he asked and beseeched and begged the Lord to take this thorn in his flesh. And God said, no, my grace will be sufficient for you. And I think that goes back to those moments where I don't feel like I'm ready to be the teacher. I don't feel like I'm ready to be the discipler. His grace is going to step in and be sufficient in those days.
Yeah, and I think too, the other side of that is I'm going to be so humble that I'm not going to step forward. And it's kind of an excuse of, I'm not that person. I'm not a leader. I'm not going to be the teacher because I'm not good enough. And you kind of, it's a false humility. It's really kind of an excuse not to disciple somebody who's in your life.
It can be prideful.
Yeah, it's the revert. It's pride. It just has a different look to it. But the root of it is still, I know more than God does, so I'm not ready to do that.
Yeah, and I think being open, like that first verse we read that Mary said, "May it be to me," like being open that the Lord may call me into super quiet, under the radar discipling that nobody ever knows about, but that one individual in me, and being okay with that. And I don't have to share that person as a prayer request so people know that I'm talking to somebody, discipling them, or being willing to say, okay, Lord, you've put me in a place where I'm in a position where I need to teach this Bible study, and I don't know how many people are going to watch it, and I'm going to do that. Like really focusing in on this is for the Lord, and may it be to me however you have called me to serve. Those silent and quiet places where nobody ever knew, but you stepped in somebody's life, like those are so powerful and so beautiful to be a part of.
Yeah,
because it's all for the Lord, and it's not about us. Okay, I'm going to read John 3:16, which was the verse from day 3. For God so loved the world. I can just
quote this. Just quote it.
I started flipping. I'm like, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. And the why of making disciples starts with Jesus. This is why. And what is our why? Our why is because we love. We love Jesus because Jesus loved us and he loved us first. We love others as Christ loved us. And I think that gets back to not seeing people as projects. We're seeing people as people God has loved and created in his image, even if they're very difficult, even if their lives are a mess. They're still made in his image.
And I would also add, while you're working on love, the other side of love is obedience. Obedience is a form of love. Because, and just to be totally honest and transparent, like I haven't always felt great love for every person in the world. I mean, there have been times when I feel great love. But if we wait until we love someone before we disciple them, that day may not come. We are to love one another, but that is, we grow in that. You know, God helps us see people the way he sees them, and then it's easier to love. But
even when you look at 1 Corinthians 13, love is a bunch of actions.
Yeah.
Patience. Nobody really ever feels like being patient. Kind. Love is long-suffering. Love assumes the best, gives people the benefit of the doubt. Love bears up under all things. Those are not things we're ever probably going to feel like doing, even in the people we do feel affection towards. I love my kids, but there were a few points this past week where I didn't feel like having patience with them. But love is, Christ himself begged to not have to go to the cross. He wasn't like feeling like going to the cross for us, and he did it. So, no, we cannot trust our feelings. They will lead us so wrong. And what does a loving why require? I love the quote that said, discipleship is a living example, not a perfect one. Which I think is back to, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, it's back to being authentic and real and open and honest about who we are and where we are. Because that's love, that's me being honest. What other things does it require of us that we haven't already talked about a little bit?
Sacrifice.
Yeah. I think one of the big points they pointed out was not having moving goalposts for being ready. And that was kind of what you were talking about before. It's so easy for us to be like, when I
learn everything in here, that day is not going to come on this planet.
No. When I am praying consistently, what does that mean? Just do it. Just do.
Yeah.
Do it. And I loved how one of them said on the video, it's such a relief to be in process, and admit that. Just admit, I'm in process, you're in process. Let's walk.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple of really good friends that are in the same stage of life that I'm in. Our kids have been in the same stage, and it's really just refreshing to be with them in that process, knowing that they are struggling with the same thing I'm struggling with, and we lead each other to the Lord to find the answer. Or if there is no answer, because a lot of times there isn't an answer, to find that peace, rescue. So
yeah. And I love how you've mentioned you have people discipling you, and that you're discipling, but that are still walking with you, that are older. You've mentioned people that are older, that are your age, and that are younger.
I like younger people. It makes you feel younger.
That's why you like to hang out with us.
Yes.
Yes. Come on over.
Yes.
Okay, so if you'll read from day 4, Matthew 13:47.
All right, Matthew 13:47. Once again, these letters are in red. Jesus spoke them. Once again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down into the lake and caught all kinds of fish. So, obviously, Jesus is telling a parable here, which is him using teachable moments to disciple.
Mm-hmm. And he was talking to fishermen, so they fully got the analogy that they were putting the net down, and they had no idea what they were going to drag back up.
Right.
No clue. How much, how little. One night they caught none. Then they caught a boat full, sunk the boat. Like, they had no idea, and it was all in the hands of the Lord. The quote that I found in the book for this day that I love was, in discipleship, Christ followers cast out the net of the gospel and pray that God will catch the hearts of men. The disciples did not catch more fish than could fit in their boat until Jesus made it happen. And dare I say, if one of our people goes and casts the net and drags in more fish than can fit in your boat, I think there are some more of us at the church that can walk alongside you and help disciple those people. So don't be afraid of that. So over the next 4 weeks, we're going to talk about the 4, what they call the pillars of discipleship. The next week is going to be initiative, and this is the go of the Great Commission. This is doing that first reaching out of step. One of the most, I'll talk about it next week, but I had a friend, I had been married a few months. She reached out to me in an email and said, hey, I know we've met a few times. I know you a little bit. 6 months into marriage was just a tough time for me. If you ever want to talk, I'd love to talk. Boom. She then discipled me. Her name was Natalie, a lot in Starkville. Awesome friend. Such good friends. She and her husband both, for Ryan and I. That was such a big moment. There's been times I've met people at the park. I talked about that last week. That's my favorite. My park ministry is my favorite ministry right now. But anyway, that's initiative, making that first connection. And then we'll talk about starting something, which is more of the practical side of getting discipleship going. And really getting a little more, I think, into the meat of getting that conversation flowing. I haven't done the whole weeks yet, so I don't know. I'm saying what I'm pretty sure is going to be covered. And then faithfulness through the middle, which could last for months or years. Mm-hmm. I've had discipling relationships that are so small. I'm like, does this count? Yes, but it's just a tiny little knot in the woven tapestry, and others that have lasted a really long time. And I think when you walk with people through really long seasons or hard seasons, life can get messy.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling we're going to get into that week, because that requires a lot of endurance and faithfulness to this work. And then the last week, we're going to talk about a backward mentality for results. trusting Christ with our results, what is it supposed to look like? Because it's not supposed to look like a bunch of little tiny me's walking around.
Right.
Because the goal, like you mentioned, is for those people to be discipling other people. Like if I'm discipling well, I'm going to let them fly, and they're going to disciple more people after me. And so, okay, so we'll finish up. On day 5, there was a story about discipleship. And I think each week they're going to have a story. And it was a really sweet story about a young mom who was losing her husband and lost her husband to cancer. And the woman that stepped in to her life by just inviting her over and led her to Christ and walked with her through that.
Yeah, but
really hard
don't
season.
forget the part where she felt the prompting.
Yes.
To talk to the stranger.
Total stranger.
Who she'd heard about her through mutual friends, I guess, Facebook, something. And felt the prompting and didn't know how to act on that prompting. And then God put her in the same room with the lady.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things that she talked about, here it is. She wanted so much to be a part of it, her group, and like learning about Christ. I think now how awful it would have been if I had let my fears keep her from it. And I just shiver at times to think of when my fears have kept someone from the group that I know and love and the discipleship opportunities here or in my life, or showing them the Lord, how I missed that opportunity. And I loved that testimony of her faithfulness. And she said too, I used to think discipleship looked formulaic, and now I think of it as cojourneying. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something we've mentioned already, kind of a thought. So Matthew 16:25 says, I didn't pre-mark my pages. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. So how is discipleship about losing our own lives?
I think that probably goes back to what I said about not being selfish with your time. And I'll tell a quick story.
Mm-hmm, please.
Years ago, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 years ago, I felt an absolute call, we're talking about the call today, to start a support group for teenagers that had drug problems. Not just drug problems, but with drug problems comes all sorts of problems.
Oh, yes.
And I resisted it. I didn't do drugs as a teenager. I didn't have any experiences with drugs or alcohol and felt like that's, but I was in the legal system representing kids that had drug problems. And God would not let me go. And finally, what I felt the Lord tell me one Sunday after the sermon was, if you don't do this, I'm going to let somebody else get the blessing. And it was just like an ultimatum that I felt God gave me. It's like, okay. I'm done with you if you don't do this. So that day I went up and talked to our pastor at the time and said, I think I need to do this. So I did.
That's awesome.
And we started, and it was whether one comes or 20 come, we're going to meet every Tuesday night. And this was formulaic because we set every Tuesday night. But over the course of 7 years that we were waiting on Tuesday nights, a couple of hundred kids came through that group.
It's fantastic.
Some for one night, some for years. But when I think about losing your own life, that was a every Tuesday night.
That's a lot of nights.
Was a lot of nights. And it kind of came to an end, a natural end, when the last group were all seniors in high school. They all graduated and went to high school, and then I became a judge, which meant I probably couldn't do that anymore. But, the call to discipleship requires us to be sacrificial with our time.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to take one night a week, but it might take, you might have to miss a shopping trip one Saturday because a friend needs you by their side. Mm-hmm. obviously in some parts of the world it is losing your life. Here, it's really just sometimes losing our comfort or losing our schedule or losing our preferences.
Losing our pride because our house is kind of messy, but we invite someone over anyway.
Yeah.
That's been, I mean, for me, it's been a shift of my dreams. My life dreams are just different than they would be without Christ. It's just different. And what we aim for is just different. Our trajectory is changed, and I believe it's for the better. I believe it's worth it. It's going to be worth it.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This is great. I'll close this in prayer.
All right.
Dear Lord, thank you so much for this time that we've just been able to share together. And for each of the women, Lord, that are joining us and here with us, Lord, that we would just be faithful to just take these concepts of discipleship and take that step and see ourselves as disciples and as disciplers, Lord, that you would give us the boldness and the faith to be just to be brave and to be open and to be real and to use our gifts faithfully to serve you and to further your kingdom. And we pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.